My name is Shaya Ostrov, and I welcome you to a unique experience that may very well lead you toward discovering your true life partner. It is called The Song of a Dove. This is an audio-visual experience that will guide you to learn to develop a deeply meaningful dating relationship that has the ability to lead to a lifelong bond of marriage. This program will introduce you to date through your own sense of soulfulness. Soulfulness is that state of mind in each of us that is the source of our deepest and truest emotional and spiritual essence. It connects us to ourselves, to Hashem, and to those we care about the most. By experiencing your own dimension of soulfulness, you will become aware that you no longer have to wait for someone to inspire you to experience a special feeling deep within yourself. For with soulfulness, you will learn that you possess this ability deep within, and your search is for that one special person who can understand and share this experience with you. Through soulfulness, you enhance your ability to communicate from your truest and deepest self, while connecting with that same level of depth and authenticity with the person who you are getting to know. And this is my goal for you. For you, continuously search for that unique and special experience that will guide you toward recognizing your true life partner. The Song of the Dove is the experience that can and will guide you to discover this within yourself and lead you in the direction of this true life partner. This program contains two essential experiences. The first is a fable about a prince, a princess, and a dove. After hearing the fable, you can explore its meaning together with your partner or with whoever you are listening. The second part of the program is a meditation which will enable you to acquire the gift of soulfulness that will bring you to a closer understanding and experience of your own true essence and lead you to the person designated to share your life. So with this introduction, let's begin with our fable. Everyone loves a storybook wedding, but this wedding was beyond all dreams, for the prince and princess were truly in love, and their wedding was rapidly approaching. It would take place tomorrow in the royal gardens. They were relatives in the royal family and had known each other since they were young children. While they realized from an early age that they were destined to marry, they also became best friends, delighting in each other's special qualities and gentleness. Once married, they would assume the royal throne, and together they would lead their people in love and kindness. The royal wedding had been anticipated for years, and now the time had finally arrived. The people of the kingdom were traveling from near and far to celebrate this glorious union. From the shoemaker to the banker, from the beggar to the duke, the prince and the princess would be wed in front of countless masses. Wagons, chariots, horses, and mules filled the roads leading to the royal palace. Men and women and children of all ages had walked for many days to be part of this wondrous event in their lives. It was a time of great joy. Flocks of gloriously colored birds flew overhead. Endless processions of wagons laden with bouquets of flowers were everywhere to be found. As the evening before the wedding approached, both the prince and princess went off to bed, preparing for the day ahead, each anticipating a day that will live in their hearts and souls and be engraved in the memories of their beloved kingdom forever. They rejoiced, the king and queen rejoiced, and a whole kingdom rejoiced. In the castle, as the princess lay down to sleep, she heard an enchanting sound coming from the open window. She looked and saw the piercing eyes of a dove staring intently at her, while the melodious sound of its cooing touched the depths of her soul. She had heard that the souls of the ancient kings and queens flew as doves throughout the kingdom, appearing at special occasions. She saw that attached to the dove's leg was a letter. It was written by the prince. She understood that the dove had appeared to the prince as well, and he had sent it to her as his winged white messenger of the soul. She extended her hand and gently brought the dove into the room. She read the letter written on royal parchment. My dearest princess, as the sun sets, I will dream of tomorrow, when the sun will rise on a new day, when you and I will be wed in our love for each other. We will lead our beloved people. Our souls have always been connected since the beginning of time, and it is my dream and wish that our souls will be united forever. The dove returned to the window and flew away, and the princess went off to bed. She smiled and fell off into a sweet and deep sleep. Sometime around midnight, she was awakened by another sound. She opened her eyes and went to the window, expecting the dove once again. However, this time it was the menacing figure of a woman dressed in black. She was startled. "Who are you?" She tried to scream. However, she was incapable of uttering a sound. Was she dreaming? She felt herself being lifted from her bed by the strength of a woman dressed in black. And in the dark of night, the princess was being abducted from the castle. The princess shuddered in horror and lost consciousness. The next morning, her attendants entered her room and awakened her for the wedding day. But she was gone. There was no trace of the princess. The castle was frantically searching room by room, closet by closet. Finally, as the morning hours passed, her disappearance was clear, and there was no choice but to tell the prince that there would be no wedding. He himself ran to search the castle, but no trace of the princess was to be found. Forlorn, he left the castle alone and broken on his wedding day. The prince was alone. The people were saddened. A kingdom was thrown into despair. The prince was inconsolable, and with each day he grieved over his princess. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and even years. Many young women were brought to meet the prince, but no one touched his heart as the princess. Eventually, the prince gave way to his sadness and left the castle dressed as a beggar who roamed the countryside. He had since forgotten what the princess looked like and was even estranged from his feelings of love he had once harbored. However, once he began his endless journey into exile, he noted that the same dove that had appeared to him before the wedding was flying behind him, hovering over him, as if to accompany him wherever he went. The dove comforted him, and he was not completely alone. Then one day, as the prince walked the countryside, his dove flew ahead of him and set itself down on a thatched roof of a peasant cottage. He wondered why the dove flew there. He decided to knock on the cottage door. The door was opened by a beautiful but sad-eyed young maiden in peasant's clothing. He was startled. The face, the eyes were so vivid. The young peasant maiden looked at the face of the young man dressed in pauper's clothing, and she too shuddered. They both saw beyond the clothing to their true identities. Both stood gazing at each other through a fog of confusion and surprise. Yet neither could utter the obvious. The princess composed herself. "Can I help you?" she asked. The prince also composed himself. "Please forgive me, but I have seen that my dove has perched itself on your roof, and I need to retrieve him." "Dove? What dove?" she asked, and walked outside to look up at the roof. Just then the bird flew down and landed on her shoulder. As in the past, she was captured by its eyes, reminding her of a distant memory, as if from another world. She was bewildered. After the awkwardness, she finally said, "I know this dove, and I know you, and I too know you," he said. "You were the princess I was to marry, but you disappeared the night of our wedding. Where did you go, and why did you never return? And why are you living in this peasant's hut?" "You are correct," she said. "I was a princess once, but that was a long time ago. My life has changed. I am no longer that person. However, I will tell you what happened to me the night before we were to be married. That night I went off to sleep, and I heard the dove and saw it had your letter attached to its leg. I read the letter and went off to sleep. Then I heard a different sound from the window. A figure appeared, dark, cold, and heartless. I was lifted up and snatched from my room, carried through secret tunnels, and brought outside the castle. I tried to scream, but there was no sound I could utter. The dark, evil figure told me, "You are a princess, but just as I live alone and in misery, so will you." Bound and gagged, I was dragged from the castle, running endlessly from one town to another. I no longer had a name, a past. I was no longer myself. This dark power had abducted me, and I would never let go. I gave up. One day, as suddenly as she came into my life, this dark beast disappeared. And I was alone, but at least I was safe. However, I was no longer the person I once was. "Yes," she said, "we were so close to sharing our lives, but I have been through so much I could never return to be that princess I once was. This thatched hut and this clothing are now who I am. This is who I will continue to be the rest of my life, alone and broken." The prince listened and responded, and I too was snatched, not by a dark and evil beast, but by despair and defeat. And I too have changed. At first I saw your face wherever I went. Then it slowly disappeared. I gave up. My sorrow has become my being. After realize I would never be the same person ever again, I decided to leave the kingdom to journey the countryside as a peasant. This is who I have become. The two stood wordless, numb and broken. Finally the prince said, "It is late and I am tired. May I remain tonight? I will resume my wandering in the morning. I can sleep under the tree outside your hut." "Of course," she said. "Please do." The prince and princess parted and went off to sleep separately. In the darkness of the night, the princess heard a sound from the window. At first she was fearful that the dark beast had returned. Then she recognized the sound from years past. It was the enchanting song of the dove. She was frightened to begin all over again. She shooed it away. But it only returned and sat peacefully in the window, singing its song, gazing at her so serenely. Finally she looked and saw its deep, loving eyes. The song and the gaze touched her so deeply. Then in a moment of submission, she permitted herself to gaze deeply at the dove. Its eyes were so dark and beautiful, filled with love. She could not permit herself to pull away. She felt a tear well up in her eyes. She heard a cry from deep within, then a sob. Her tears flowed through the night. She was carried back to her past, to the night before the wedding, to her feelings of love and happiness that once filled her soul. She remembered who she once had been. She remembered why she deeply loved her prince. She closed her eyes and went back to sleep. In the morning, she opened the cottage door to see the prince sleeping under the tree. She looked at him and saw a glow on his face. She understood that he too had been visited by the dove, and he too had returned to be the prince he had once been. He opened his eyes to see her. She had changed. Her darkness was gone. Her full beauty had returned. The two sat quietly in the early morning sun as it shone through the dew, and the aroma of sweet summer grass filled the air. "I am your prince," he said softly. "And I am your princess," she responded. "When I went to sleep last night," he said, "I thought I would never be the person I once was, that I could never love or care again. Now I know this was not true." The princess listened, and I too felt I would live the rest of my life in this peasant's hut and clothing, alone and broken. Now I am ready to become the princess once again. "Will you return with me?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, "I will return." Together they returned to a kingdom that had patiently awaited them for years. The couple rejoiced, the kingdom rejoiced, and the song of the dove filled the air. And it's so important to remember and understand that you and I, all of us, we are all the prince and we are all the princess. and the song of the dove resides within each of us. The fable you just heard is about two souls who were destined to share their lives and were then stolen from each other by the ever-present destructive dark forces that fill our lives and pull us away, leaving us alone and insisting that our lives will always be devoid of love and fulfillment. Yet the truth and essence of the fable is about the song of a dove, the soul that Hashem plants within us and touches the deepest dimensions of who we really are. It's a song of love and caring and being one with our true life partner. Our soul sings a song to the heart of each of us and reunites us with our true selves and each other. Here are some issues for you to consider discussing with your partner or others you have listened together to this program with. What speaks to you most about this fable? What does it tell you about the delicate nature of human feelings and vulnerability? And from your own life experience, how do you understand the song of the dove and its power to reveal your true spiritual internal dimension that has the ability to transform your life?